It had been half a month since I'd last seen Willow Lancaster. In that time, a steady stream of rumors had reached my ears. They said she had chartered a private jet for the popular idol, Ethan Cole, the fuselage emblazoned with a blatant message of support, circling over the skies of Kingsbridge like a grand public declaration of betrayal. Even now, waiting for my car by the roadside, I could overhear the whispers of two women huddled under a nearby umbrella. "Did you hear? That Lancaster heiress, she's completely lost it, making such a huge scene for some celebrity. You're just finding out? I heard she's fighting with her fiancé, throwing a tantrum, but it's a bold move. He's the Blackwood heir, and she's embarrassing him like this. Wow, the world has finally gone crazy in a way I can't even comprehend." An invisible hand seemed to materialize from the air and slap me hard across the face. The sting was sharp and hot. I closed my eyes, trying to suppress the turmoil churning inside me. I wasn't angry about the money she spent. Squandering the Lancaster fortune was none of my business. I was furious because, for the first time in 16 years, her gaze wasn't on me. When the driver finally pulled up, he saw the look on my face and broke into a cold sweat, too terrified to even stammer out an excuse. I was in no mood to punish him for being late. My mind was entirely consumed by Willow Lancaster. Tonight's dinner was organized by Jason Miller, a get-together for our circle. He'd repeatedly stressed in the group chat that everyone had to be there. Willow hadn't replied, but she hadn't refused either. It was a tacit agreement, or perhaps she wasn't foolish enough to completely burn bridges in front of all our friends. I composed my expression and pushed open the door to the private dining room. Despite my displeasure, this was a matter to be discussed behind closed doors after dinner. Willow could afford to lose face, but my reputation, sincere Blackwood's reputation, was more precious than gold. As I approached the room, Trixie Bell's signature cutesy affected voice drifted out. "Willow follows him everywhere he flies. I heard he had a falling out with a brand over his endorsement fee, so Willow begged several other brands to work with him. She even had a massive fight with her grandfather over him, saying she wouldn't care if she were disowned." I turned a deaf ear and pushed the door open, my face a mask of indifference. Trixie's voice died instantly when she saw me. She bit her lip, stammering awkwardly, "Big B." I gave a slight nod in acknowledgement. Inside, Jason and Trixie were already seated. 4 others were playing cards on the sofa. Only Willow was missing. Jason and I had barely exchanged a few words when Willow walked in. I hadn't seen her in half a month. She had lost some weight, but she still wore that same noble and aloof expression when she faced me, as if the scandalous rumors engulfing the city had nothing to do with her. She sat down beside me as naturally as she had countless times before, dutifully taking the hot water to rinse my cup and plate. Her movements were graceful, flawless. This version of her was a world away from the obsessed lunatic Trixie had just described. I glanced at her, and the anger I had suppressed inexplicably subsided a little. Perhaps things weren't as bad as the rumors claimed, but I never expected that halfway through dinner there would be a soft knock on the door. A person in a clumsy bear mascot costume walked in. His steps were comical, but he clutched a large, vibrant bouquet of red roses in his arms, and in his other hand he held a Labubu doll, making for a conspicuous sight. The moment he appeared, I felt Willow stiffen beside me. Her gaze, once calm as still water, was now filled with surprise and even a flicker of light I had never seen before. Trixie was the first to break the silence, exclaiming dramatically, "Ooh, those flowers are gorgeous. Is that for me, handsome? But you don't need flowers to win me over, just a room key." I shot her a weary glance. The woman just loved to run her mouth. The person in the costume seemed flustered, but from beneath the heavy headpiece, his eyes were fixed on Willow. He spoke in a deliberately hoarse voice. "Today is our store's anniversary promotion. We're randomly selecting a young lady to participate. These are the prizes." Trixie immediately fell silent. Jason's face had darkened. He had organized this dinner, and now some riffraff had barged in. He instantly pulled out his phone to call the restaurant manager. Just as the man stood there, trapped in an awkward position, Willow stood up. She didn't even spare me a glance. She just waved at the costumed man and said in a light tone, "All right, I'll participate." With that, she quickly followed him out of the room. It all happened so fast that by the time everyone else reacted, the door had already clicked shut. In an instant, the room fell dead silent. Everyone's eyes, deliberately or not, landed on my face, speculating, pitying, waiting for the drama to unfold. I slowly picked up my chopsticks, took a piece of the braised pork knuckle that no one had touched, and began to chew. "This dish is good," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it was like a royal pardon. The tension in the room instantly dissipated, and everyone quickly agreed. Trixie blinked, cautiously adding, "It is good. You should have some more, Big B. If you like it, I could learn to make it for you next time." I put down my chopsticks, wiped my mouth, and looked at her, and at everyone else. "The dish is good," I said flatly, "but I don't like eating pig slop." An eerie silence once again enveloped the room. I had no desire to stay any longer. "I'm leaving," I announced, and got up to go. Outside the room, I called Willow. As expected, she declined the call. A moment later, a text message came through. It read, "Hubby, something urgent came up." I scoffed. Urgent. Playing dress-up with some guy was urgent. Willow and I had known each other for 16 years. We were practically childhood sweethearts. After we came of age, our families naturally arranged our engagement. I had considered it the most stable part of my life plan. She would always be the quiet, obedient Willow whose eyes followed only me. But now she had to pull this true love stunt. How interesting. I dialed Augustus Lancaster's number directly. On the other end, I recounted the events of the dinner with considerable embellishment, emphasizing how Willow had run off with a mysterious man in front of everyone. Old Master Lancaster coughed repeatedly in anger, promising me he would give me a satisfactory explanation. After hanging up, I looked at the only photo we had together on my phone, a graduation picture from our youth. In it, she stood behind me, her smile shy and content. I traced her face in the photo with my finger, the stinging pain in my chest growing sharper. "Willow Lancaster, you are Sincere Blackwood's fiancée. You have no right to deviate from the path I've set for you, and you certainly have no right to deviate for someone else. If you want to play games, then I'll play to the end. I'll break your wings myself and show you who your only sky is." After that day, I didn't see Willow for a long time. Rumor had it that Augustus Lancaster had given her a severe scolding and grounded her. All the resources she had thrown at Ethan Cole were withdrawn. The ridiculous affair between her and the celebrity finally died down. For now, my family was satisfied with this outcome, viewing it as a young girl's temporary rebellion. They believed that after some discipline she would return to the proper path. But I never expected that someone who wasn't satisfied would come looking for me himself. Every month I host a party on my family's yacht to cultivate relationships and give people a place to network. As usual, I hadn't reviewed this month's guest list, leaving it entirely to my secretary. I never imagined that Willow's lover would manage to sneak his way in. In the yacht's bar, the music was deafening. I was lounging on a sofa with Caleb Vance and a few other close friends, watching a scantily clad beauty dance on stage. She couldn't have been more than 20, and even in this environment you couldn't miss the starlight in her eyes. She was wild yet pure. Just as I was getting into it, a slender man stepped in front of me. "Mr. Blackwood?" I recognized the voice immediately. It was the man from the restaurant, the one in the bear costume. Ethan Cole. Without the costume, he looked decent enough. He stood there now, looking down at me, his brows furrowed, his eyes filled with undisguised contempt and disdain. I was completely baffled. "The hell? Who the fuck are you? Can't you see you're blocking the view?" Caleb Vance had a short fuse. He was enjoying the show, and being interrupted put him in a foul mood. "I'm Ethan Cole," he said, his voice dripping with self-important arrogance. Caleb turned to me, his eyes asking, "You know him?" I shook my head. He glanced at our other friends, and after a round of negative responses, Caleb shot to his feet, shoved him aside, and cursed. "Are you nuts? What the hell is your problem? Security, get him out of here." Ethan stumbled from the push, but he clearly wasn't one to back down. He swung his arm out, surprisingly managing to knock Caleb to the ground. I rubbed my forehead. Caleb held a grudge. Sure enough, the guys next to me all stood up, and Caleb himself grabbed a wine bottle from the table. Just as the situation was about to spiral out of control, Ethan let out a cold laugh. "Sincere Blackwood, if anything happens to me on your turf, Willow Lancaster will hate you for the rest of her life." His voice was confident and defiant, as if he had me right where he wanted me. I almost laughed out loud. I couldn't care less if Willow hated me. But I still raised my hand to stop Caleb. It wasn't worth creating a feud between Caleb and Willow over this. After persuading Caleb and the others to back off, I finally turned my full attention to Ethan. He was half a head shorter than me, with a slim build. His face could indeed be described as pretty. It was hard to imagine that Willow was into this frail type. "Willow doesn't love you," he said, getting straight to the point. I picked up my glass, swirling the amber liquid inside, and smiled. "And?" He seemed taken aback by my reaction. He froze for a moment, then declared righteously, "It's all your fault that Willow was scolded by her grandfather. It's your fault she's so upset you hurt her, and you can still act like nothing happened." I set my glass down, leaned forward, and stared into his eyes. "Everything that has happened to Willow is her own damn fault for not knowing her place. Cheating, throwing herself at someone. We're all adults here. You have to pay the price for your choices." The word cheating seemed to strike a nerve. His face changed, and he retorted, "You and Willow are just in a business arrangement. There are no feelings involved. We're in love. It's not cheating by your logic." I leaned back on the sofa and casually crossed my legs. "A business marriage doesn't count as cheating, so does that mean you speaking without thinking makes you an idiot?" I advised him, "Being a kept man is one thing, but if you're going to be a dog, you'll only eat scraps." Ethan's face flushed red and pale, his chest heaving. He gritted his teeth. "I'm already a famous actor. I make 6 figures a month on my own. I'm more capable than you, better than you in every way. You were just born with a silver spoon, wasting your days away only. I am worthy of Willow." Looking at his indignant face, I laughed. "You're not bad," I nodded, then pointed to the girl still dancing on stage. "But Kingsbridge is full of gold nuggets. You're one, and so is she." I paused, my smile vanishing, my gaze turning sharp as a blade. "But I'm not," I said, enunciating each word. "I own the gold mine." I couldn't be bothered to look at his ugly expression any longer. "And you don't have to stand here pretending to defend her. If you really want to stand up for her, make it official. Announce to the world that a business marriage isn't cheating, and you two are in love. I, Sincere Blackwood, will grant you your wish." "Why so quiet?" I sneered. "Scared? Afraid of losing everything you have today? Let me be blunt. You've had a taste of high society and you want to stay. But you picked the wrong person. Your talent and Willow's love are worthless to me. Power and money aren't transmitted like a disease, and class is an insurmountable barrier. The only reason you're even standing here is because of Willow. If she weren't my fiancée, you wouldn't even have the right to speak to me." My words were like a razor, slicing away his false pride one layer at a time. His face was pale, his lips pressed into a thin, stubborn line of fury. I stood up, brushing off non-existent dust from my suit, and delivered the final blow. "Mr. Cole, you've enjoyed the privileges that come with that custom license plate with the 5/8, haven't you?" I watched his pupils contract and smiled in satisfaction. "Willow probably didn't tell you. That car was an engagement gift from my family." Having completely shattered his self-assured confidence, I turned and walked away. I went out onto the deck. The sea breeze was salty and damp. I didn't head back to port immediately. I let the yacht continue on its course. I wanted everyone to see that some actor could publicly provoke me, Sincere Blackwood, and I could carry on with my party as if nothing had happened. The calm before the storm is often the most terrifying. The next day, the news that the Blackwood and Lancaster families had called off their engagement exploded across the internet like a bolt from the blue. My parents were ruthlessly efficient. The press release was watertight, officially stating that the two families would remain business partners while subtly attributing the broken engagement to Willow's personal conduct. In an instant, the tabloids dug up every last detail about Willow and Ethan Cole. The day Willow's mother brought her and Ethan to our house to apologize, my mother was trimming a prized orchid. "Sincere," Mrs. Lancaster said, her smile stiff. "The children are young and foolish. Don't take it to heart." My mother didn't even look up. With a sharp snip, she cut off a perfectly blooming flower. "If they're foolish, they need to be taught a lesson." My mother's voice was quiet but carried an unyielding authority. "A Blackwood daughter-in-law cannot be a person without rules or shame." Mrs. Lancaster's face turned livid. Willow closed her eyes, took a step forward, and looked at me, showing submission for the first time. "Sincere Blackwood, I'm sorry. I was wrong." I looked at her pale face, feeling not a shred of pity. She continued, I've always thought of you as a brother." Before she could finish, a scoff echoed from upstairs. "It was my sister, Isabella Blackwood. We don't need another charity case in this family," my sister said, leaning against the second-floor railing, looking down on them. "What, you still expect the Blackwood family to support you? Willow Lancaster, if you're going to apologize, show some sincerity." Willow looked up, her eyes dark. After a long silence, she finally spoke. "Next quarter, Lancaster Digital will postpone its new product launch by half a month," my sister said slowly. "Not enough." Willow bit her lip, as if making a monumental decision. "Lancaster will withdraw from the end-of-month project." I raised an eyebrow and finally spoke. Leaning back on the sofa, I looked at this shameless woman and said, "Since you're here to apologize, let's get on with it. Don't waste everyone's time." I meant Neil. Ethan couldn't take it. He gritted his teeth, about to say something, but Willow held him back tightly. In the end, she pulled a reluctant Mrs. Lancaster and Ethan Cole down with her, slowly bending her knees in front of me, my mother, and my sister. In that moment, I felt no satisfaction, only a cold, hollow emptiness. I watched her bowed head, the figure that had chased after me for 16 years, now humbled in the dust at my feet. I thought I would be pleased, but I wasn't. This was far from enough. I didn't want her submission. I wanted her to regret it, completely and utterly. The moment Willow knelt, Ethan's eyes looked like he wanted to eat me alive, but Willow never once looked up at me. The so-called apology ended with their humiliation and my family's dominance. I thought that would be the end of it, but Caleb Vance insisted on getting revenge for me. He organized a gathering and specifically invited Ethan Cole. I didn't want to go, but Caleb mentioned that the dancer I'd noticed on the yacht would be there. I was, admittedly, still somewhat intrigued by those wild yet innocent eyes. But as soon as I arrived at the bar, I saw Ethan, dressed in a sharp suit, surrounded by a group of people, holding court like he was the center of the universe, laughing uproariously. After the engagement scandal, he had somehow become a sort of warrior for love, his fame skyrocketing in certain circles. I was hesitating, about to turn and leave, when Caleb slung an arm around my shoulders and whispered in my ear, "Bro, tonight's for you. Payback time." Before I could stop him, he had grabbed a bottle of champagne and stormed over. "Good evening, everyone," Caleb's voice boomed over the music. "Let's give a big welcome to the man of the hour, the jet charter Romeo himself." Ethan Cole, all eyes instantly swiveled to Ethan, the smile on his face visibly freezing. Caleb grinned mischievously and aimed the champagne bottle at him. With a loud pop, the cork flew out, and a jet of white foam shot straight into Ethan's face. Ethan let out a pathetic cry, soaked from head to toe. The crowd stifled their laughter and offered a smattering of applause. I frowned and turned to leave. This kind of childish revenge was utterly boring, but I had only taken 2 steps when a wave of gasps erupted behind me, mixed with the piercing sound of shattering glass and the thick smell of blood. I whipped around just in time to see Ethan, his eyes bloodshot, clutching half a broken bottle, charging at me like a madman. "Sincere Blackwood, I'll kill you." Caleb was the one who had humiliated him, but he directed all his hatred at me. In a flash, a figure slammed into me from the side, shoving me violently out of the way. I stumbled but managed to steady myself. Looking down, I caught the person just as she was about to collapse. It was the girl with starlight in her eyes. The dancer, her forehead now bleeding profusely, still managed to curve her lips into a faint, dimpled smile. I truly could not comprehend Ethan Cole's logic. Did he have any idea what the consequences would be for cracking my head open? The police arrived quickly. Ethan and Caleb were both taken away. I carried the girl, Vivian Rose, all the way to the hospital. She didn't make a sound while they stitched her up. My mother and Caleb's older brother rushed over. My mom checked me over from head to toe before finally breathing a sigh of relief. I heard Willow went to the police station too. Even someone as lovesick as her lost her temper when she found out Ethan had almost become a murderer. The Lancaster family was in the middle of a critical power struggle, and he had caused such a massive mess. Vivian refused to settle privately and insisted on pressing charges against Ethan. That was my intention as well. I never showed my face again. That same day, I took Vivian fresh from the emergency room and flew to Qatar. I needed to clear my head, and I needed an opportunity to drag the Lancaster family into the abyss. Ethan had just handed it to me on a silver platter. I spent a month in Qatar, reading the daily updates my assistant sent about the Lancaster family. Their internal conflict was escalating. Derek and Diana Stone, the illegitimate siblings, had their father's backing and were using bribery and any means necessary to gain support. Meanwhile, Willow, tarnished by Ethan's legal troubles and the broken engagement, had completely lost her grandfather's trust and was struggling to maintain her footing within the family. It was time to go back. On the day of my return, I ran into Willow and Ethan at the airport. He was out on bail, probably there to pick someone up. Willow's gaze was fixed on Vivian's hand, which was linked through my arm. A delicate tattoo now covered the scar on Vivian's forehead, adding to her wild allure. She was young, stunning, and in stark contrast to the haggard-looking Willow, the comparison was devastating. When Ethan saw me, he looked like he was seeing his father's murderer. The fury in his eyes was practically shooting flames. Sincere Blackwood, he seethed. You despicable, heartless schemer. All you know is how to play dirty tricks. What kind of man are you? He roared. You really think you're so great? Willow told me everything. She's always seen you as nothing but a tool. She said that even if she had to marry you, she would have had my child and made you raise it. Willow's face flushed crimson. The once dazzling idol was now jumping around like a mad dog. I imagined whatever romantic filter she had seen him through must have shattered by now. I let out a soft laugh. Ethan, if either of you had a brain, you might stop and think, am I the tool, or was she just the Lancaster family's pawn for a corporate merger? Ignoring them, I walked past Willow. But as I did, I heard her call my name in a voice that was almost a whisper. Sincere, have you been okay? My body paused for a fraction of a second. In 16 years, she had never once asked me that. I turned slightly, looking at her face, etched with exhaustion and conflict, and slowly uttered 3 words. What's it to you? With that, I took Vivian's arm and walked away without a backward glance. Behind me, Ethan's roars grew even more frantic. Back in Kingsbridge, the first thing I did was announce that Voyager Corp., a company under my personal control, would fully support Derek and Diana Stone. The news sent shockwaves through the city. The Blackwood and Lancaster families were titans of the industry. My move was a public declaration that the Blackwood family had completely abandoned Willow Lancaster. Countless companies that had been on the sidelines instantly knew which way the wind was blowing and began to back the illegitimate siblings. Augustus Lancaster wanted to end the infighting, but the arrow was already loosed from the bow. It was out of his hands. The Lancaster family's internal chaos devolved into a feeding frenzy for capitalists. Everyone knew Derek was greedy and lecherous, and Diana was short-sighted, but no one cared. All they wanted was an excuse to carve up the massive prize that was the Lancaster Empire. After half a month of chaos, the illegitimate siblings had completely overpowered Willow. The time was right. I released the news of Ethan injuring Vivian with a bottle, along with the crystal-clear security footage, onto the internet. Vivian's fan base was already massive and fiercely loyal. Combined with the public's distaste for Ethan and Willow's love story, public opinion exploded. The internet was flooded with condemnation. Before their PR team could even react, the Lancaster group's stock plummeted. Willow, her reputation damaged by Ethan and cornered by the illegitimate siblings, was trapped. Under the immense public pressure, Augustus Lancaster was hospitalized from the stress, forcing him to completely discard Willow as a pawn. Derek Stone became the rightful heir to the Lancaster group. As I read the news of Willow being ousted from the family's core leadership, Vivian wrapped herself around me like a vixen. You can't just use me like this, you know, she purred. I expect to be compensated. I rubbed my aching back and sighed. Youth. It was a wonderful thing. I casually secured her the lead roles in 2 major productions. After taking power, Derek and Diana immediately began purging Willow's remaining allies. Many long-serving Lancaster veterans were dismissed in humiliating ways. Dissent festered within the company. Drunk on their newfound power, they acted as if they owned the world. The higher you climb, the harder you fall. Debauchery by day, decadence by night. Within a few days, Derek was reported for inappropriate conduct in his office, and Diana was reported for embezzling company funds. Both were taken in for investigation. I was drinking water when I heard the news and nearly choked. My sister Isabella quickly handed me some tissues, frowning. Willow has already lost. Sincere, it's time to stop. I smirked at her. Sis, the game has just begun. My sister stared at me, stunned. From the very beginning, my target was never just Willow. Marrying her was about maximizing profits, but if I could kick the Lancaster Group out of the game entirely and become the maximum profit myself, wouldn't that be even better? Voyager Corp led the betrayal. All the dirt I had gathered on the Lancaster Group was leaked, flowing like water. With Augustus Lancaster in a coma and Willow's father being useless, they had no choice but to call Willow back to save the day. But the company's leadership had already been replaced. As a deposed heiress, she was powerless to turn the tide. Lancaster stock hit its daily limit down for 3 consecutive days. For 3 days, Willow and her father worked around the clock, trying every possible strategy to save the market, all in vain. In the end, they had to cut their losses, shrinking the company by more than half. The severely weakened Lancaster Group became a piece of meat for anyone to take a bite of. And I was the one who took the biggest bite. The day I seized control of the Lancaster Group's most vital project, my father threw a massive celebration for me at the company. The entire firm shut down as thousands of employees cheered for me after the party. My dad gifted me a black Rolls-Royce. The license plate was the only one of its kind in Kingsbridge, 5/8. Sitting in the car, I watched the city streets blur past the window. I didn't feel the expected euphoria. Instead, a growing sense of irritation gnawed at me. I had won. I had crushed Willow Lancaster and the entire Lancaster family behind her under my heel. So why couldn't I get the image of her last look out of my mind? There was no hatred in it, no resentment, only a profound sorrow, as if every last flicker of light within her had been extinguished. I had won. I had won power, money, and the reverence of all. I was the pride of the Blackwood family, an unshakable legend in the Kingsbridge business world. But I wasn't happy. A strange emptiness washed over me like a tide, threatening to drown me. Especially in the dead of night, I would find myself uncontrollably thinking of Willow. I remembered her clenched fists as she knelt before me, her vulnerability at the airport when she asked if I was okay, and that final look in her eyes, devoid of all light. I tried to numb myself with alcohol and work. I even grew closer to Vivian. But no matter how warm the body in my arms was, those eyes full of starlight couldn't dispel the chill in my heart. While processing the assets of the acquired Lancaster Group, I discovered an overlooked property, an old suburban house where Willow had lived as a child. According to procedure, it was to be cleared out and auctioned. That afternoon, on a whim, I drove there alone. The house had been vacant for years, the yard overgrown with weeds. I pushed open the creaking gate, the air thick with the smell of dust and old memories. Following my memory, I went up to the second floor and opened the door to Willow's childhood bedroom. The room was empty, most things having been moved out. Only a single carved wooden chest sat forlornly in a corner. It was covered in a thick layer of dust and secured with a small brass lock. I stared at the lock, a sudden powerful urge rising within me. I found a tool and crudely pried it open. The moment the lid was lifted, the scent of mothballs and old paper hit me. Inside, there were no jewels or girlish secrets as I might have imagined. There were only stacks of yellowed letters, several thick diaries, and at the very bottom, an old photo album. I picked up the album and flipped it open randomly. The first page was a photo of 3 children. It was faded, but still clear. A younger me stood in the center, expressionless. Beside me was a beaming Willow, and on my other side, a boy who looked remarkably like me. It was my younger brother, Silas Blackwood. The brother who, in an accident 10 years ago, had left me forever. My breath caught in my throat. My heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand, the pain so intense I could barely breathe. I never looked at photos of us. His death was a wound in my heart that would never heal. With a trembling hand, I opened a diary next to the album. The handwriting was elegant. It was Willow's. The first entry was dated the day after Silas's accident. There was only one sentence, the ink smudged and blurred by tears. "It's all my fault." I kept turning the pages. Page after page, line after line, recorded a young girl's most secret thoughts. Sincere doesn't smile anymore. He never smiles. He's starting to hate me, I know it. If only I hadn't run into the road to chase that butterfly. If only I hadn't. Today I secretly put a white rabbit candy in his desk. It used to be his favorite. After school, I saw it in the trash can. I wore a new dress today. Mom said it was pretty. I walked past him, but he didn't even look at me. "Sincere, how can I make you happy again? How can I atone?" My fingers began to shake uncontrollably. So that was the truth of the car accident. I only knew my brother died saving someone. I never knew that someone was Willow. Everyone had hidden this fact from me. I picked up the topmost diary and flipped to the most recent entries. They were from the days just before she started her obsessive celebrity chasing. I saw him. In a movie. His name is Ethan Cole. The way he smiles, the way he plays the guitar. It's exactly like Silas. Exactly. I can't stop myself from wanting to see him, to be good to him. He's like Silas, alive. I thought, if I can make him happy, fulfill all his wishes, would that be the same as making up for my sin? Would this weight in my heart get a little lighter? They all say I'm crazy. They don't understand. I'm just trying to atone. I just want to see that face, the same as Silas's, keep smiling like that. Sincere seems really angry. He misunderstood me, but I can't explain. How can I bring up Silas in front of him again? How can I tear open that scar for him with my own hands? He would find me disgusting, wouldn't he? Using a stranger as a substitute for his brother. Drip. A hot liquid fell onto the diary, quickly blurring a small patch of ink. I touched my face and realized I was crying. Absurd. Pathetic. All my anger, all my revenge, my self-righteous victory, it was all built on such a ridiculous, tragic misunderstanding. She wasn't chasing some celebrity, she was chasing a ghost, a shadow she used for self-redemption. She hadn't betrayed me, she was just trying, in the clumsiest, most extreme way possible, to atone for a tragedy she believed she had caused. And me? What had I done? I took her profound, desperate love and guilt and twisted it into evidence of betrayal. I personally cast her into hell, crushed her under my foot, and reveled in her pain, all while thinking I was the righteous, wronged judge. I was the pathetic clown. I slammed the diary shut, dropping it back into the chest as if it had burned me. I fled the room, stumbled down the stairs, and ran out of that suffocating old house. I started the car, the engine roaring like a beast. I had to find her. I had to find her. I had to tell her that what happened all those years ago wasn't her fault. I had to tell her that the words died in my throat. What right did I have to say anything? I had personally destroyed everything she had, her family, her pride, her life, and now I was going to show up and tell her sorry. I made a mistake. The scenery outside blurred into streaks of color. I drove faster and faster, as if trying to leave the entire world behind. But no matter how fast I went, I couldn't escape the crushing weight of regret that had settled on my heart. It was so heavy it hurt to breathe. I used every resource at my disposal, searching for Willow Lancaster across the globe like a man possessed. I checked every entry and exit record, sifted through surveillance footage from countless cities. For 3 whole months there was nothing. She had vanished without a trace, like a grain of sand sinking into the ocean. In those 3 months I lost nearly 20 pounds. I stopped going to parties and turned down all non-essential engagements. For the first time I realized how empty my world was without all the noise. The business empire I was so proud of now seemed like nothing more than a gilded cage. I ended things with Vivian, giving her enough money to live comfortably for the rest of her life and several top-tier roles. She was smart. She didn't ask any questions. As she left, she just looked at me and said, "Mr. Blackwood, you seem very sad." Yes, I was sad. I finally got a lead on her in a small seaside town so remote it was barely on the map. My private jet landed at the nearest airport, and from there it was another 3-hour drive before I finally reached the town called Wind's Rest. The town was quiet, the air filled with the mixed scent of sea salt and sunshine. I found her at the end of a small alley lined with bougainvillea. She was in a small flower shop, her head bowed, carefully trimming a bouquet of white lisianthus. She had cut her waist-length hair into a short bob and was wearing a faded cotton dress. Sunlight streamed through the window, casting a soft halo around her. In that moment, she wasn't the Lancaster heiress, not the person I had been entangled with for 16 years. She was just an ordinary, peaceful girl. My heart felt like it was being squeezed in a vice, the pain silencing me. I pushed open the shop door, and a wind chime tinkled. She looked up at the sound. The moment our eyes met, a flicker of faint surprise crossed her face before it settled back into a calm so profound it was like a dead, still lake. The eyes that had once been filled with stars whenever she looked at me were now empty. "What are you doing here?" She spoke first, her voice as flat as if she were addressing a stranger. My throat was dry. The 1,000 words I had prepared for this moment vanished. I just stared at her greedily, searching her face for any trace of the past. If "You're here to buy flowers. Feel free to look around," she said, lowering her head again to continue trimming the stems, as if my arrival were nothing more than a minor interruption. My pride, my ego, was crushed into dust in that instant. I walked toward her, my voice hoarse and unfamiliar. "Willow, I saw the diaries in the chest, but I couldn't say the words. It would be too cruel, like tearing open a wound that had just begun to heal. Instead, I pulled a black card from my pocket and placed it on the counter in front of her. "There's more than enough money in here," I said quietly. "In a villa in Kingsbridge, a few cars, you can do whatever you want. Just come back with me, please." Willow stopped what she was doing. She looked up and watched me quietly. Her gaze held no hatred, no resentment, only a complete and utter detachment. She let out a small, soft laugh, a laugh filled with a pity I couldn't understand. "Sincere Blackwood," she said slowly. "Those things, along with the Willow Lancaster who loved you for 16 years, you burned them to ash yourself. Flowers can't grow from ashes." My heart sank like a stone. I refused to give up. I bought the house across from her flower shop and watched over her day after day. I watched her open and close the shop, watched her smile and greet her neighbors, watched her bask in the sun with a lazy cat in her lap. Her life was peaceful and serene, and I was an out-of-place ghost, suffering in torment just outside her world. I once thought she couldn't live without me. Now I realized she was living better without me, and without her, I had forgotten how to breathe. One night during a torrential downpour, I finally broke. I ran to her door and pounded on the thin wood with all my strength. Willow Lancaster opened the door. Open up rain streamed down my hair and face, mixing with my tears. I was a pathetic mess, like a child abandoned by the world. The door finally opened. She stood there, watching me quietly. Soaked to the bone, I begged in a raw voice, "Willow, come home with me." She didn't speak, she just turned, went back inside, and returned with an umbrella, which she handed to me. Sincere Blackwood, she looked at me, a flicker of emotion in her eyes for the first time, a weary, almost pitying look. "Your brother's death wasn't your fault, and it wasn't my fault. It was just an accident." She paused, then said softly, "You need to forgive yourself, and please, let me go." With that, she slowly, deliberately, closed the door in my face. The click of the latch was the sound of my last shred of hope being extinguished. I stood in the pouring rain, holding the umbrella she had given me, but I no longer had the strength to open it. The rain was cold, piercing, but it was nothing compared to the vast, desolate wasteland in my heart. I was transmigrated into the body of a CEO's husband, a product of a marriage of convenience. Before I could even enjoy the immense wealth, she handed me a divorce agreement. The CEO kept telling me that her old flame was coming back to the country soon, and she had to divorce me immediately. I thought back for a moment. The CEO and I had been married for 3 years, and she had never let me touch her. Now, she was telling me bluntly that she wanted a divorce. For another man. I was shocked. How could such a brazen-faced hussy exist in this world? Smack! I raised my hand and slapped the CEO across the face. "Forgive me, Buddha, I really couldn't hold back." My apologies. Sincere Miller Victoria Ashwood clutched her stinging cheek, glaring at me. "Did you just hit me?" Smack! I slapped her again. "Sorry, I have OCD. Seeing her other cheek perfectly fine, I just couldn't resist evening it out. You hit me again?" She stared at me, her eyes red and welling with tears, looking utterly wronged and on the verge of crying. "How dare you hit me? Twice?" Of course I dared. Based on my years of experience, her desperation to get a divorce meant the ball was in my court. If she wanted me to sign obediently, she would have to play nice. So what if I hit her? She'd just have to suck it up. "Oh, Victoria, darling, I'm so sorry. That was just a stress reaction." I immediately switched to a gentle expression and tried to reason with her. "A stress reaction?" Victoria frowned. "Exactly." I nodded, my tone serious. "I'm a man. I'm your husband. For you to tell me to my face that you're divorcing me for another man, it's natural I'd have a stress reaction. That's why I lashed out. But I honestly didn't mean to. There was some truth to that. Put yourselves in my shoes. Your wife of 3 years won't let you touch her and then asks for a divorce for another guy. You'd probably want to tear the whole house down." Victoria thought for a moment and then nodded. "I know. You've been wrong these past 3 years. See? Even she knew she had gone too far. Take a look at the divorce agreement. I'm willing to give you $50 million as compensation." She gestured with her chin towards the papers on the table as if the slaps were already forgotten. $50 million. My eyebrows shot up. I picked up the agreement and read it carefully. Sure enough, it stated that upon signing I would immediately receive $50 million in compensation. I pursed my lips and looked up at Victoria, asking softly, "Victoria, let me ask you something first, and you have to be honest. Go ahead." "So, what's the total value of our shared marital assets?" At that question, Victoria's face clearly darkened, but she answered truthfully. "The company and all the properties combined, it's probably around $10 billion. Hearing that, I narrowed my eyes and just stared at her in silence. We had nearly $10 billion in assets, and she was only willing to give me $50 million. How could she even say that out loud? The fact that I didn't slap her a third time was a testament to my immense self-control. Uncomfortable under my gaze, she quickly tried to defend herself. "But most of those assets were earned by me over the past few years. They have nothing to do with you." Her words reminded me that our marriage was one of convenience. In reality, Victoria's company had grown so large in 3 years entirely because my parents had sacrificed their own company's interests to fully support their daughter-in-law's development. With that in mind, I had even more right to take back what was mine. I took a slow breath to calm myself and looked at Victoria again. I had to admit she was stunning. Wavy hair, about 5'9", with skin as white as snow, bright, captivating eyes, and a perfectly proportioned, tall figure. Her waist was slender, and she had a pair of long, pale legs. She was a perfect 10, a real stunner. Yet, in my memory, the original Sincere had lived like a combination of a butler and a stand-up comedian for the past 3 years, dutifully simping for her and providing endless emotional support. And all he got in return was a cold divorce agreement and compensation that was less than 1% of their total assets. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. "Victoria Ashwood," I leaned in close, using my hand to lift her delicate chin, and gave her a wicked smile. "You want a divorce? Fine, but you have to sleep with me first." She had saved herself for her old flame for years. I wasn't about to let her have her way. I was going to taint her. Besides, we were married. Was a request like this really so unreasonable? Her eyes widened in anger. "If you don't agree, not only will I refuse the divorce, but I'll also tell your precious old flame all about us." I added another threat. My guess was she hadn't even told Mr. Moonlight that she was married. Being a good guy was useless with Victoria. The original Sincere had simped for her for years, and his miserable end was a lesson learned. "I'll give you 3 minutes to think about it." With that, I stepped back and plopped down on the bed, waiting for her decision. She glared at me for a long time before finally spitting out Sincere, "I never knew you were this kind of man." "This kind of man? You're the one who forced me to be." I shrugged. She could forget about trying to guilt-trip me. I wasn't the original Sincere, that fool who only knew how to give. Before transmigrating, I'd worked 18 different jobs. I'd seen the best and worst of people, and I was terrified of being poor. I've always been the kind of guy who takes the cake and eats it too. The CEO wants a divorce? I was going to strip her of everything I could. "Fine, you win." After another long, tense silence, Victoria finally gave in for the sake of her old flame. I immediately reached out, grabbed her pale hand, and pulled her gently into my arms. The original Sincere had a beauty by his side but didn't know how to enjoy her. Well, sorry, but I was going to try for him. A long while later, we finally stopped and lay on the bed to rest. Victoria had indeed been saving herself, but now that was over. She was practically numb but still pushed through the discomfort to bring up the divorce. "Now, can you sign the papers?" "Not yet," I refused again. She gritted her teeth in anger, frowning at me. "You've already taken my most precious thing. What more do you want?" Sleeping with her was to make up for the last 3 years of neglect. Want a divorce? We still had to talk about splitting the assets. Most of her assets were acquired after our marriage, including the profits my family's company had sacrificed. I had to get half. No discussion. I wasn't some weak-willed pushover from a romance novel. I was going to take back what was rightfully mine and get some emotional damages on top of it. I shifted slightly and pulled her into my arms. Victoria resisted at first, but as soon as I asked, "Do you still want a divorce?" She obediently leaned against me. "Victoria, your body doesn't reject me. Why don't we just not get a divorce?" I tried to persuade her. Her words might keep people at a distance, but her body's reaction was the complete opposite. It was very enthusiastic towards me. We were incredibly compatible in bed. No, Victoria's attitude was firm. "I'm getting this divorce no matter what." Frustrated, I had no choice but to state my terms. "All right, have it your way. But the assets must be split 50-50. The moment I said that, she shot up and retorted coldly, "On what grounds? For 3 years, I was the one working my tail off while you lived a comfortable life at home. Why should you get half of my fortune?" She was completely blind to the original Sincere's contributions. I sat up too and shrugged. "If you don't agree, then we'll just go through the legal process." It was no longer about whether Victoria wanted a divorce. It was about me wanting one, and I had to walk away with half her fortune. "Sincere, you've changed. I don't even know you anymore." Victoria tried to change the subject. I knew she was trying to guilt-trip me again, so I cut her off. "If you can't part with the assets, then we won't get a divorce." I wasn't in a hurry. She was the one desperate to run off to her old flame. In the end, Victoria couldn't bear to part with half her fortune, and the negotiations stalled. Later, I had someone look into it. Her old flame was named Ethan Donovan. After a few unsuccessful years abroad, he was coming back to find Victoria. Ethan was due back in just over a month. With a 1-month cooling-off period for a divorce, that meant Victoria had only a few days to decide whether to give me half the assets if she wanted to be completely free of me. No matter what, I was getting that 50-50 split. Since a huge amount of money was involved, I was worried she or her old flame might do something reckless. So I took the time to file a preventative report with the police. At dinner that night, I told Victoria about the police report. She was instantly furious and hurt. "Sincere, you actually think I would hire someone to kill you? We've been together for 3 years. Do you really think I'm that kind of person?" "You might not be, but who knows about your Mr. Moonlight?" I shrugged nonchalantly. She pouted. "Don't worry, Ethan has a kind heart. He would never do something like that." I smiled. "Well, just so you know, if anything happens to me, the police will suspect you and your Mr. Moonlight first." She snorted dismissively. That night, thinking about how the original Sincere had always slept in a separate room from Victoria, I couldn't help but slap my forehead. God, what a complete idiot. No wonder you couldn't win your wife over in 3 years. Even if they weren't intimate, sleeping in the same bed for 3 years should have built some kind of bond. The original Sincere was far too respectful. But I was different. I grabbed my pillow and barged into Victoria's room. "Hello, wifey, let's sleep together." Naturally, she refused. "Get out," I ignored her, walked straight to the bed, and pulled back the covers. "You're my wife. It's only natural for us to sleep in the same bed." "I've only just realized today what a shameless bastard you are," she glared at me. I glanced at her computer screen, which she hastily tried to cover. "Relax, I already saw. It's just your chat history with Mr. Moonlight, right?" I scoffed and pulled her hand away. "What did you talk about? Let me give you some pointers." Don't look, Victoria panicked, but she was no match for my strength. I snatched the laptop and used my hip to shove her aside. "Vicky, in just another month I'll be able to see you again." Can't wait for you to come back, Big E." I read the messages aloud, making her flush with a mix of shame and anger as she slapped at me. "Give it back, stop reading." I did as she asked, closing the laptop and placing it on the nightstand. Then I rolled over and pinned her beneath me. Wifey calling him so affectionately, "I'm jealous, you need to be punished." Since I never really considered her my wife, I didn't get angry no matter how sweet their chats were. Right now I just wanted to stir her desire and enjoy our marital duties. After a few rounds, Victoria finally settled down. When we were done, she snuggled up to me, curling into my arms like a kitten, her face a pout of playful resentment. "How about this? I'll sleep with you for a month, and I'll give you 20% of the company shares plus 10 properties. How's that?" She was bringing up the asset split again. I rolled my eyes. "No deal," then I stated firmly. "If you want a divorce, it has to be a 50-50 split." With that, I closed my eyes and ignored her. Over the next few days, her desperation for a divorce led her to repeatedly try to negotiate the asset division with me. But every time we talked, it would end with me pulling her into bed for another session. Our marriage was a secret, not publicly known, so even though she was losing out with me, she couldn't risk making a scene. This became my leverage. We went on like this for over a month, and the divorce agreement remained unsigned, and she slept with me for that whole month. Our nights were wild and exhilarating. Then, the day came. Her old flame, Ethan Donovan, returned to the country. That evening, Victoria went to the airport to pick him up. Afterwards, they went to a high-end restaurant and even sat at a private table for couples. I had someone keeping tabs on them, and photos of their intimate moments were sent to my phone one by one. I immediately set out, bringing a newly drafted divorce agreement, and headed to the restaurant. When I walked in, I spotted Victoria and her Mr. Moonlight, Ethan Donovan, right away. The guy wasn't as handsome as me. I had no idea what Victoria saw in him. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, I guess. Victoria saw me too and quickly looked down, like a child caught stealing cookies. Before I could walk over, she excused herself and headed to the restroom. I cornered her when she came out. "What are you doing here?" She glanced around nervously, worried as always that Mr. Moonlight would see us. I slapped the divorce agreement, the one demanding a 50-50 split, against her chest. "Sign it! You don't want your old flame to find out you're married and have been sleeping with me, do you?" Now it was my turn to chase her for a signature. I'd seen their chat history. Ethan still thought Victoria was a pure, unmarried virgin who had been saving herself for him. So, I thought I'd try using that to threaten her. Say what you want. After a moment, she calmed down and shrugged nonchalantly. "Worst case, we both go down. If you dare to tell him, I'll never divorce you, and you can forget about getting half the assets." With that, she casually tossed the agreement into a nearby trash can. I froze for a second, surprised that even bringing up Ethan didn't work. This old flame wasn't very effective, was he? Vicky, speak of the devil. Ethan Donovan had come looking for her. Seeing me, Mr. Moonlight's brow furrowed, and he immediately went on high alert. "Vicky, who is this?" "Hello." Before Victoria could introduce me, I spoke up. "My name is Sincere Miller. I'm Ms. Ashwood's business partner." I shot Victoria a suggestive eyebrow raise. She must have been so grateful. Look how considerate I was. To avoid ruining her date, I, her actual husband, was calling myself an outsider in front of the homewrecker. "Mr. Miller." Mr. Moonlight leaned closer to Victoria, deliberately resting against her and feigning drunkenness as he introduced himself. "I'm her boyfriend. I just got back in the country today." He might have looked tipsy, but his eyes were full of suspicion as he looked at me. "All right, Big E, let me get you a room upstairs to rest." This place was a hotel. Victoria supported Mr. Moonlight, preparing to get him a room. As they turned to leave, Mr. Moonlight shot me a smirk over his shoulder. I read the challenge in it. It was the sneer of a victor looking down on a loser. I wasn't worried. I followed them and got a room myself, right next door to Mr. Moonlight. The moment they entered their room, I called Victoria. "Hey, I'm in room 355, right next door. You have 1 minute to get over here, otherwise I'm calling the paparazzi to come catch a cheater in your room." Victoria and I had a marriage certificate. We were a legitimate couple. What was Mr. Moonlight? When it came down to it, he was the homewrecker. I hung up immediately after saying my piece. Meanwhile, in the room next door, the second Ethan entered the room, he tried to embrace Victoria. Victoria, however, had no intention of staying with him. Just then, her phone rang. Seeing it was a call from her hubby, she breathed a sigh of relief, pushed Ethan away and answered. When she heard her nominal husband was right next door and demanding her presence within a minute, Victoria was speechless, but she did as she was told. "Big E, something urgent came up that I need to handle. You stay here at the hotel tonight and get some rest. Come to my office tomorrow, and I'll arrange a place for you to stay." Without waiting for Ethan to react, Victoria hurried out. As the door clicked shut, Ethan's expression turned sinister. It was that Sincere Miller. He slammed his fist against the wall in anger. He had clearly seen that the call was from Sincere, though he didn't know what they said. His gut told him their relationship was far from simple. After leaving the room, Victoria checked to make sure Ethan hadn't followed before pushing open the door to my room. When she came in, I pointed to the bathroom. "Go take a shower." "I'm not letting you touch me again." Victoria stood her ground, her tone firm. "Tisk," I scoffed dismissively. "Stop wasting time." I walked over, swept her up into my arms, and carried her into the bathroom myself. A while later, the sound of Victoria's unrestrained, beautiful moans filled the bathroom. That night, Mr. Moonlight did not sleep well. When he woke up the next morning, he arrived at the company with dark circles under his eyes and yawned as soon as he saw Victoria. "Big E, what's wrong? Was it the jet lag? Didn't you sleep well?" Victoria asked with concern. Ethan was blunt. There was a couple in the room next to me last night. They were going at it until the middle of the night, and I didn't get a wink of sleep. Especially the woman. She was a screamer, sounded like she had a stereo speaker hooked up. Hearing this, Victoria's face turned beet red. Damn it, that stereo speaker woman was standing right in front of him just then. I arrived at the office and happened to overhear Ethan's complaint. I strolled past Victoria with my hands in my pockets and gave her a suggestive look. She shot me a glare in return. We didn't say a word, but it felt like 1,000 were exchanged. When Mr. Moonlight saw me, his expression changed instantly. Hey, he hurried over and blocked my path. Vicky, what is he doing here? Me? I pointed to myself, smiled, and answered for Victoria. I'm coming to work at the company. Is that a problem? Hearing this, Mr. Moonlight got fired up. Vicky, I don't like him being in the company. Fire him, heh. I chuckled again, scoffed, and continued to provoke him. Sir, I'm one of this company's shareholders. Your girlfriend can't fire me. With that, I raised an eyebrow at Victoria right in front of him, then turned and walked away. Mr. Moonlight was so angry he was practically fuming. Vicky, buy out his shares and fire him at this. Victoria's brows furrowed deeply. Putting everything else aside, buying out a shareholder's shares? Was that something a business school graduate who'd studied abroad would actually say? Did he think running a company was child's play? Big E, I think, you have a prejudice against Sincere. Also, a shareholder's stake is legally protected. I can't just get rid of him. As Victoria spoke, her expression grew stern. Ethan immediately realized he had misspoken. His eyes darted around as he tried to explain. I was just so angry at that guy that I wasn't thinking straight. I was just talking nonsense. He quickly changed the subject. By the way, Vicky, didn't you say you wanted me to come to the company so you could arrange a job for me? Oh, Victoria remembered. She had originally planned to make Ethan the project department manager, but she changed her mind at the last minute and decided to make him her assistant instead. Ethan was thrilled. I get to be Vicky's assistant? That's great, I can be with you all the time. When I heard this news, I was not pleased. I strolled into Victoria's office with a cup of coffee and locked the door behind me. Victoria Ashwood. I hear you're keeping Mr. Moonlight around as your assistant. I am very unhappy right now. Victoria had been engrossed in her work. Hearing my familiar tone, she looked up, put down her pen, crossed her arms, and said with a slight pout, Just spit it out. What do you want? I smiled. After all our recent time together, the CEO wife and I were becoming more and more in sync. I walked over, downed my coffee in one gulp, and set the cup on her desk. When I looked up at her, my eyes gleamed like a wolf staring at its prey. I rubbed my hands together and beckoned to her with my finger. Stand up, turn around. We had tried all sorts of positions. Victoria knew exactly what I wanted. A deep, slightly shy smile spread across her face. Hurry up. I have an important meeting in half an hour. With that, she obediently stood up and did as I said. Half an hour was a bit tight, but for me, it was enough. When I left Victoria's office, Mr. Moonlight, clutching a file, immediately intercepted me. Mr. Miller, the accountant, he said coldly. What were you two talking about in my girlfriend's office just now? Why did you need to lock the door? Hearing this, I secretly lamented how soundproof the office door was. What a shame Mr. Moonlight hadn't heard Victoria's melodious tunes. I was giving Ms. Ashwood a financial report. It involved sensitive information and we didn't want to be disturbed, so we locked the door. Same old story. I was such a good guy helping Victoria cover up her crimes again, but it still felt strange. We were the legally married couple, yet here I was explaining myself to the homewrecker. Then again, I found it rather amusing. After my explanation, I gave Ethan a smirk and walked past him. From Ethan's perspective, my smile was a direct provocation. Don't think I can't see what's going on. There's definitely something fishy between you two, he muttered behind me. Just then, Victoria came out of her office. Ethan immediately shut up and put on a fawning smile for Victoria. Vicky, I finished the report. Could you take a look? Just leave it on my desk. I'm heading to a meeting now. I returned to the finance department office. I walked over to Vivian Jones's desk, the girl with the glasses, and placed my cup where she could easily reach it. Vivian, any progress? Vivian was my person, and she was helping me look into the company's books. Boss, all the accounts are clean. There's no sign of any asset transfers. I nodded at her report. Vivian had worked at my father's company. She was a top university graduate, highly capable, and I trusted her. If you find any evidence of her cheating with Ethan Donovan, file a lawsuit immediately, I told Vivian, a dark look in my eyes. That's right. I wasn't just investigating Victoria's company projects. I was preparing to sue her. It was always the same. What I wanted were her assets. As for her body and her heart, those things didn't matter. The next day, a rumor spread through the company that the new assistant was Victoria Ashwood's boyfriend. The new assistant was, of course, Ethan Donovan, and he, riding on his status as Victoria's boyfriend, started throwing his weight around the office, particularly enjoying finding fault with the finance department. You people in finance should clean up more. Throw out all these plants. He pointed at the small potted plants on everyone's desks, ordering them to be thrown away. And these trinkets. He then turned his attention to the various small decorations on the desks. Get rid of these too, you're here to work. From now on, I don't want to see any of this clutter on your desks. After his tirade, he strutted over to me, chin held high, and sneered in a low voice. I'm Vicky's real boyfriend. I'm going to marry her. This company will be mine sooner or later. Just you wait. I'll make sure you're kicked out of here. I just scoffed, not bothering to engage with him. After Ethan left, puffing out his chest like a pompous rooster, the entire finance department erupted in complaints. I just kept scrolling on my phone, paying it no mind. However, that afternoon the company issued a new rule. No plants or personal decorations were allowed on desks. Violators would be fined. Clearly, Victoria had listened to Ethan's suggestion. Once again, I took my coffee to Victoria's office, locked the door, and then, under her watchful gaze, I threw the stuffed animal and small cactus from her desk into the trash. Victoria was instantly furious. Sincere, are you out of your mind? I shrugged and argued logically. The company issued a new rule. No decorations or plants on desks. Victoria, as the boss, you can't have special privileges. Victoria was left speechless. This new rule was Ethan's idea, wasn't it? I asked. She didn't answer, which was a tacit admission. I snorted, leaned in closer, and said with a contemptuous smile, You just do whatever Ethan tells you to do. Now I'm jealous. What are you going to do about it? She knew what I meant, but this time she held back. Don't start anything in the office again. I don't want rumors spreading around the company. I didn't care what Victoria thought. I forcefully pulled her up and placed her on the desk. It was 2 hours later when I finally left her office. I glanced back at a satisfied-looking Victoria and casually closed the door. As I turned, I was once again blocked by Mr. Moonlight. You two were alone in there for 2 hours again. Tell me, what were you doing? His face was contorted with rage, his wide eyes looking like they were about to shoot fire. Ms. Ashwood and I were discussing work, Assistant Donovan. If you don't believe me, you're welcome to go in and ask her yourself. There I was again, explaining myself to the homewrecker. It was truly laughable, but for some reason I quite enjoyed explaining things to him. Ethan snorted, then said, Let me give you some advice. Don't be a homewrecker. It's shameful to interfere in other people's relationships. I actually froze. I watched as he stuck his chin out and walked into Victoria's office with an air of righteous indignation. It took me a long moment to process what he'd said. I shook my head and let out a soft laugh. I couldn't wait to see the look on Ethan's face when he found out that he was the homewrecker. That night, Victoria arranged for Ethan to stay in an apartment near the company. My informant reported that she only dropped him off downstairs and didn't go up with him. I was puzzled. You missed Mr. Moonlight every day when he was gone. Now that he's back, where's all your enthusiasm gone? I had a feeling Victoria wasn't showing Ethan the passion he expected. Logically, they hadn't seen each other in years. It should have been like dry tinder and a spark, ready to ignite and burn for 3 days and 3 nights. But there was no fire. Soon, I figured out why. A little while later, Victoria came home. She kicked off her heels and immediately started complaining to me. You're like a man on a mission these days. Nighttime isn't enough. You have to go at it during the day, too. You're exhausting me. She sounded like a wife complaining about her overly amorous husband. And in that moment, I realized something. It was my fault I was keeping her so thoroughly satisfied every day that she had no energy or desire to go foraging elsewhere. It suddenly clicked. I wasn't the original Sincere. The original Sincere had simped for Victoria endlessly and gotten nothing in return. Me, on the other hand, I tormented her daily. I threatened her, warned her, and even forced her to have trysts with me in all sorts of clandestine places. And all of this, it turned out that Victoria actually liked it. She hadn't mentioned the divorce in a long time. In fact, I was the one who kept pushing for it. Good news, the CEO seems to be falling for me. Bad news, I only love her money. And of course, her gorgeous body. The CEO didn't want a divorce anymore, but I wanted to take a huge chunk of her fortune, and at the same time I lusted after her body. What was I to do? I remember thinking then that I had to come up with a brilliant plan to have my cake and eat it too. To put it bluntly, I wanted to get divorced and take the assets, but I also wanted to keep Victoria's body for my own enjoyment. Perhaps I was being too greedy. Sincere, what are you thinking about? Victoria came over, sat right on my lap, and rested her head on my chest, cuddling up like we were a perfectly harmonious couple. I'm sorry. It was my fault. I shouldn't have listened to Ethan without doing my own research. She was apologizing for what happened during the day. She was no longer calling him Big E, but by his full name. Based on my extensive experience, this was a clear sign that she was ready to settle down and live a proper life with me. But I was dead set on divorcing her. The next day, the person monitoring Victoria and Ethan sent me a video. They had been alone in the underground parking garage. During that time, Ethan made a surprise move and hugged Victoria. Although Victoria eventually pushed him away, the hug lasted for a noticeable period. To be blunt, Victoria's resistance wasn't very forceful. With that attitude, if Ethan ever forced himself on her, she'd probably just let it happen. Her attitude only strengthened my resolve to get a divorce. Assistant Lee. I called Vivian Jones over and gave her the video, along with the screenshots of Victoria and Ethan's sweet online chats I had collected earlier. Cut the video before the end and use it along with the chat screenshots as evidence to sue Victoria Ashwood for adultery. I finally filed for divorce. When she received the summons, Victoria stormed into the finance department, with a bewildered Ethan trailing behind her. Sincere Miller Victoria slammed the summons on my desk and demanded loudly, "Explain this to me. What is going on?" Ethan stared blankly at the summons. "A divorce petition. Vicky, what's going on?" Victoria was in no mood to explain to him. Her eyes were fixed on me. I calmly put down my phone and looked at her. "It's exactly what it looks like. I'm divorcing you." The moment I said that, the office erupted. Whoa, did I hear that right? Mr. Miller, the accountant, is divorcing Ms. Ashwood? They were married? So, that means Mr. Miller is Ms. Ashwood's husband. Wait a minute, if Mr. Miller is her husband, then what's with Assistant Donovan? Everyone said he was her boyfriend. Hold on, if Ms. Ashwood has a husband, then Assistant Donovan is the other man? Yeah, and he's been bossing us around all the time, even yelling at Ms. Ashwood's actual husband. How did he have the nerve? The truth was out. I was Victoria's husband. Ethan, who had been parading around as her boyfriend, was completely stunned. No way! Vicky, you're married? Tell me, what the hell is going on? He was losing his mind, relentlessly questioning Victoria. Victoria, completely fed up, pointed to the door. Assistant Donovan, please leave. Her harsh tone made her feelings towards him crystal clear. Ethan looked at Victoria, then at me, his face rigid. He probably felt like he'd just swallowed a fly. Ultimately, under the mocking gazes of everyone in the office, he left in disgrace. Victoria then called me into her office to discuss the divorce privately. Now she was clearly panicking. She clung to me, desperately seeking affection. Sincere, hubby, we've slept together so many times. I've been your woman for a long time. Why do you have to divorce me? Let's not get a divorce. Please stop trying to divorce me, okay? Her attitude was unprecedentedly humble. She even started to pleasure me right there, trying to win me over. But my mind was made up. I was sticking with the lawsuit. In the time leading up to the court date, Victoria tried everything she could to please me. She started cooking in the kitchen. She took me to the movies, to romantic dinners, going on dates like a real couple. In certain private places, she would even initiate sex, and no matter what she did, I went along with it. After all, it was true that I craved her body, and besides, I just wanted to divorce her for the assets. I never said I wanted to leave her. During this time, Ethan kept a low profile at the company. When he saw me, his previous arrogance and defiance were gone. He would even actively avoid me. But Victoria fired him anyway. Vicky, you can't do this to me. I came back to this country for you. And you were the one who never told me you were married and let me act like your boyfriend. I've become the laughingstock of the whole company. Why do you have to fire me too? In the underground parking garage, Ethan blocked Victoria's path, reminiscing about the past and questioning her. I happened to be driving by, so I decided to stick around and watch the show. Yes, I lied to you when we were chatting online back then, but you lied to me too. Weren't you also married when you were abroad? And for the record, I never once said you were my boyfriend. That was all your own assumption. And so, the once sweet online couple had finally reached the end of the road. Good. This was the outcome I wanted to see. Victoria Ashwood. Come on, let's go home. I didn't watch the whole thing. I took the opportunity to wave at Victoria, interrupting Ethan's pestering. Hearing my voice, Victoria's heart leaped with joy. Her husband was telling her to go home. Did that mean he might drop the divorce suit? Filled with hope, she left Ethan behind and eagerly hopped into my car. We got intimate in the car. When we got home, we went straight at it, battling it out until we were both exhausted. Our relationship was heating up fast, as if we were a couple in the first flush of love. Meanwhile, the fired Ethan was rejected by every company he interviewed with. He had no real skills to begin with, and had been coasting on Victoria's support. Later, Ethan became a male model and teamed up with a few vicious criminals to kidnap me. They succeeded. Sincere Miller, you were married to Victoria all along. Why did you hide it from me? And you said you were just business partners. Was it fun tricking me? They tied me to a small stool. Ethan grabbed my collar and screamed hysterically. I admit I tricked you, but you're no saint either. Besides, it was a secret marriage, and we're in the middle of a divorce. I told him the truth. You bastards, both of you are bastards. Ethan's face grew more and more twisted. I only just figured it out. When you two were alone in the office, you were doing that fine. Was it good sleeping with her? I'm going to make you both pay then. He made a call, telling Victoria to bring $100 million in cash, a loan, for my ransom. He warned her that if she called the police, he would kill me immediately. Listening from the side, I couldn't help but roll my eyes at him. Did this guy have any idea how much $100 million in cash was? Did he really think Victoria could carry that by herself? After making the call, Ethan hung up and looked at me, a deranged obsession in his eyes. When your wife gets here, I'm going to screw her right in front of you. And not just me, I'm going to let all my buddies have a turn too. I want you to watch as we all take turns with her, ha ha ha. His failure to sleep with Victoria upon his return had driven Ethan into a state of pathological madness. Too bad. He would never get the chance. Don't move suddenly. The place was swarmed by police officers. They were all armed, their black pistols aimed squarely at Ethan and his gang of thugs. From being kidnapped to being rescued, it took less than 20 minutes. I had been having Ethan monitored the entire time. How could he have possibly kidnapped me so easily? To be blunt, I let him succeed. The moment he named his ransom amount, the police made their move. I wanted his crime to carry the maximum possible sentence. Demanding $100 million in ransom, barring any surprises, Ethan would be spending the rest of his life in prison. When I got home, Victoria was still in the process of gathering the cash. My God, in such a short time, the entire room was filled with stacks of red bills. Seeing me return safely, Victoria burst into tears. I held her and comforted her for a long time before she finally calmed down. We looked like a deeply loving and devoted couple. But on the day of the divorce hearing, I still didn't withdraw the suit. In court that day, Victoria's eyes were red as she kept looking at me. She didn't say a single word from beginning to end. She absolutely couldn't understand why, after we had just spent the previous night in an 18-round battle in the bedroom, we were still proceeding with the divorce hearing today. My lawyer presented the screenshots of her intimate chats with Ethan. He also showed the video of their embrace, carefully edited to cut off at the end, along with photos of them entering the hotel room together and eating a couple's meal. Seeing all this, Victoria just shook her head. No, that's not it. Ethan and I only chatted online, and that was a long time ago. Nothing physical ever happened between us. That night, I helped him to his hotel room, but I was actually staying next door, in the same room as my husband. Even though she didn't believe she had actually cheated, the evidence I provided was overwhelming. Many of the photos were deliberately framed to incriminate her, and she couldn't explain them away. In the end, the court found her guilty of adultery and granted our divorce on the spot, and she was the at-fault party. She got 40% of the marital assets, I got 60%. After the verdict was announced, I still went over and took Victoria's hand, smiling as I told her, Vicky, we're just divorced, not separated. Don't look so sad. Give me a smile. Victoria was completely bewildered by my actions. Sincere, what do you mean? Me, I shrugged. I just wanted to split the assets. I never said I wanted to split up with you. Split the assets. Victoria wasn't stupid, she suddenly understood. Her husband didn't want to leave her, he just wanted her money. So the money is more important than me? She was upset now, tugging at my sleeve and starting to cry. I narrowed my eyes at her and asked back, "What do you think?" Victoria's tears immediately turned into a smile. I guess the money is more important. See? Even she knew the money was more important. Mainly because our marital assets were close to $10 billion. Any rational, clear-headed person would know the money was more important. Of course, that's not to say people aren't important. Victoria wasn't just a love-struck fool. The moment she refused to sign the 50-50 split agreement, I knew she was the same kind of person as me. From then on, we continued our lives together. We were inseparable every day, even more affectionate than before the divorce. Even after we had our second child, I never remarried her. I have always believed in one thing and one thing only. In the face of immense fortune, human nature cannot be tested. I will never trust anyone. As long as I hold on to my money, no one can ever hurt me.